Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Every once in a while I do a video where I do 3 projects that are similar or related in some way, and that's what I'm going to do today. I thought I would do, my wife has a little simple ring necklace that's kind of a ring that goes through just 2 kind of oval bail hoops, and it's got little stones set all the way around it. And I thought I'd do 3 different versions of that minus the stones to see how they come out. I think they'll probably be kind of cool, and they should be well within the range of someone who's a beginner to do these ones. So they might be a good beginner practice projects, and I suspect they'll turn out to be kind of pretty as well. So let's give it a try, see how it turns out. So this is one of my design idea sketchbooks that you can get on my merch store. This one has information about the various melting temperatures of types of solder. Some of the other ones have other useful information like conversion charts and things. What I really like about these though is it allows me to keep track of the projects I've done in the past, so I can revisit them and if I want to remember how I did things, because I certainly can't remember how I did everything anymore. It also has a nice dot matrix in the background that makes it easier for me to sketch up better pictures. So like I said, we're going to do something kind of simple and beginnerish today, but I think 3 different variations of the same thing will look nice. So this one we'll do just plain. This one we'll do with kind of a hand-hammered texture. I'm going to use the edge of my chasing hammer, which I like to do to create a kind of a cool texture. And I'm going to use a piece of pre-made pattern wire to make a little circle on this one here. Now the tricky part about this is we're taking half-round wire, and this is half-round shaped as well, just with a pattern on top. And we're bending it in the way that it doesn't want to bend, because it's easy to bend when you go the flat side towards the middle, but if you try to go sideways and bend it, it's kind of challenging. So we'll have to do a little work to get those to happen. I did one just to see if I could make it work okay. Let's see how it came out here. I was pickling it for a while. And I used 8 gauge half-round for this this one, and we'll use that for this one as well. And the pattern wire here was 3 millimeters wide, and it had kind of a braid look to it. I got it from Rio Grande, and I'm sure they still have that. But you could use any kind of pattern wire if you wanted to. So here's the ring I made. It's a little bit out of scale, but so I'm just gonna on this one I'm just gonna add a couple of 14 gauge round wire jump rings that have been made into ovals, and that'll be what we do for that one. But I think we'll start by making another one of these. So I multiplied this times 22, and this was actually about 21 I think, just to give myself a little extra leeway, and ended up with 69.08. And then of course I fudged upwards again to make sure I had enough, because I'm always over correcting to make sure I don't run out, cut something too short. And I think I cut it at 71 or something, and it came out a little bit big. So, but that's okay. I don't really care too much about the scale. You can play with that to get it just right. But let's go ahead and cut ourselves another piece of that round wire, or half-round wire, I should say. By the way, 8 gauge half-round is 3.25 millimeters wide, and that's what we're using. 14 gauge round wire is 1.6 millimeters wide. And this stuff, like I said, is 3 millimeters wide. So this is what we're going to start with. And let's cut this one just a little bit shorter than the other one. If you're new to my channel, here's some information about my torch and my solder that I use and the flux and everything. If you have trouble getting things flat, you can always use a miter vise jig. Those are handy. But let's measure out. Let's actually do 69 and see how it comes out. Right there. So we'll kind of cut it off in that range and file that end. So one of the things we might do when we're shaping this, the reason it's so hard to bend wire like this in that direction is because you're trying to stretch this outer edge pretty far and trying to compress this inner edge when you're bending it, and it really doesn't want to do that. So what it tries to do is tries to twist on you, because it's thinner in this dimension than it is in this dimension, so it'll try and torque a little bit. So we're going to have to kind of control that and keep it in check while we're doing this. So I'm going to set this stuff out of the way for a minute. And we also, once we get it part of the way, in order to make it easier to bend the rest of the way, we might want to anneal it, which will soften the metal back up, and we'll talk about that when we get to that stage. So what I like to do when I'm bending wire in a way that it doesn't want to go is I'll try and get it pretty flat first. I like to use these wide nose, flat nose pliers like this. Yeah, this one does. If you grab it while it's laying flat on the table like this, you can use that to get some leverage. And we don't have to get it perfectly round in the first go around here. We're just trying to get the bend started. So I'm keeping it held down against the table so that it stays sort of flat. And we're getting it to bend that way. The less you can have this slip out when you're doing this, the less dinged up your metal is going to get as well. If it starts to turn on you a little bit, you can always set it on your bench block and use like a plastic headed hammer. Kind of try and flatten it back out again. You can also just manually do it with your pliers if you need to. So it's getting to be pretty hard to bend at this stage, so it might be time to anneal it, which should soften the metal back up. The more you work silver, like a lot of metals, the stiffer and springier it gets, because the crystalline structure inside starts to interlock with each other. In order to get it to loosen back up again and let go of each other, the crystals, we need to heat it up to the point where it's kind of a dull red color. So let that cool for a minute or two, and then we can cool it off the rest of the way in a liquid. Let's see if we can bend it a little further now. I'm going to actually make this sort of oval so that these two ends come together kind of nicely. And then we'll round it back out after we're done. Just to make sure these are nice and flat, well, now that they're sort of lined up, I'm going to do this. That's pretty close. Let's go ahead and solder that together. I have a few little pieces of solder here. Set one right on that crack. Got a good seam there. Now let's see if we can round it out on the one side. It's going to still try and twist on us a little, so we can, again, correct that as we go. I'm getting relatively round. I like to flatten things out a little bit since it's twisted some. I like to set it on one bench block like this, and I have this lovely one that Flying Chef, one of my YouTube commenters, sent me, and it's great for flattening these things out like this. It's always been kind of amazing to me how malleable metal really can be, as hard as it seems sometimes. But I mean, the amount of stretching we did on this outside edges, and without it breaking, is sort of impressive when you think about it. Looking pretty round there, pretty flat. So I'm going to do just a little cleanup with my rotary tool in a white wheel, a white silicone abrasive wheel, and see how it comes out. Okay, so that's cleaned up a little bit, and I'm going to use the edge of my chasing hammer, so we got kind of a sharp angle there. I really like the kind of texture it leaves when because it's kind of glittery. I thought about stamping this. You could make all sorts of variations. You could probably try and reticulate it, or you could make something that wasn't a circle, something that was sort of abstract shape that was sort of sinuous. That'd be kind of cool. Just make sure this is still pretty circular. That's kind of nice, actually. See how glittery it is now? I think that'll make for a nice kind of eye-catching piece. So we'll set that to the side. This one we'll leave plain, and we'll just polish it up as is. And then let's do the pattern wire one. And then we can add the rings. And then we'll have 3 different pendants we can get some pictures of and see how people like them. So with pattern wire, this is a little bit skinnier, so it might be a little bit easier. But we're going to do the same kind of thing. See how it's trying to twist though. I've even occasionally taken half round wire and rolled it through the rolling mill with a texture plate, and that makes for kind of a nice look too, because it's rounded on the sides but it has a flat surface that has a texture on it. It's kind of a fun thing to do. So with pattern wire, we want to get it to solder well, but also not have a lot of that solder penetrate through to this design side, because that'll make kind of an ugly spot that doesn't match the rest. So we're going to use a relatively small piece of solder and see if we can get a good solder joint, but still get full penetration through that crack. So I'm going to use one of these little tiny pieces here, and we'll get it started and see how it goes. And I'm going to do what's called pick soldering. If you're interested in learning how to do this, it's a really useful skill. I have a pretty good video about it, so check out that video there. It's one of the skills that made the most difference to me as far as metalsmithing is concerned. It allows you to place solder pretty precisely, which is nice. And just the amount that you want as well. So let's turn it over and see if we have a silver line or a black crack. I see a silver line, I think. So that means we've got penetration through the crack. If you see a black line, that generally means there's still a crack there. So sometimes if you flip it over, heat it from this side, it'll draw some of the solder up to the top of the seam there. You got to be careful though, if you leave it on there too long, it'll start to spread out on the surface. And then when people look at your pendant, they say, that's really pretty, except for that one spot. You don't want that to happen. You want your admirers to be amazed. Let's see if we can round that out a little bit. It wouldn't be very comfortable to wear like this. If you have a frenemy, you could give it to him as a Christmas present. Alright, let's see if we can do it just a little flatter. I like those kind of words where they squish two words together. It's called a portmanteau, if I remember right. Like celebrity names. Brangelina. Or hunger and angry, hangry. Creative use of language. I bet someone will really like this one. And I get a little bit of slop right there. I might be able to clean it up with a ball burr. Be right back. Okay, I got 3 different rings here. Now we need to make some jump rings that we're going to make into ovals, I think. So they sit kind of nicely on here. And I have to make a decision on size here. So I don't know. I don't think they need to be huge. Thinking maybe this size right here on the bottom on the smaller side. So let's wrap some rings around that and see how they turn out. And we're going to need 6 of them. You could use a saw if you prefer to do it that way. I just like to cut these off this way. There's 1. 2. 3. I estimated relatively good on that one. Doesn't usually happen. So it's going to be a lot easier to make these into ovals after they're soldered together, I think. And so I think what I might do is solder them together, make them into ovals, and then stretch them out on a I have an oval jump ring mandrel here. And we'll kind of try and stretch those out that way. And then cut them with a saw right on the solder joint and just reflow them after they're on there. Sound like a plan? It sounds like an extra step, but I think it might make it easier, honestly. So let's make sure these are all filed nicely. Alright, let's cut a few little tiny pieces. Occasionally people ask me what kind of solder I'm using, and if I'm cutting it on sheet like this, it's hard silver sheet solder. I have started to use occasionally a little bit of paste solder sometimes of lower temperatures, but I don't have any other kinds of sheet solder than hard. So sometimes I wish I was one of those organized people. I wouldn't have piles of tools everywhere. Okay, let's see if we can kind of oval these out. Can oval be a verb? Can you oval something? It might be helpful to use some nylon jawed pliers to kind of squeeze these. We might even be able to lozenge these a little bit more. Is that a verb? Lozenge something? I think more like that is a good idea. What do you think? So let's try and get them all into that shape. Sometimes you have to kind of improvise if you don't have all the fancy tools. I didn't even used to have this little oval jump ring mandrel. I think somebody gave it to me, which was nice. One of my old students had it or something. But prior to having that, I just would have manually shaped them, you know. So keep this around as kind of a guide here. Alright, I'm not going to make you watch me shape all of these, so I'll be right back. Okay, I have these little rings on here. I've cut them with a jeweler's saw. I tried to hit it right where the solder joint was. Hopefully we did. We being me. I'm going to pick a little bit more on there just to make sure its solder's closed, in case I didn't quite get it in the right spot. You can see I've kind of positioned them away from the band here so I don't accidentally do anything. that I don't want to have happen. Where'd you go? I think we're good on that one, so I'm going to toss him in the pickle. This is the plain one. Oh no, this is the one with the texture on it. Okay. You don't always have to make fancy stuff for it to look nice. I have a tendency to try and do really fancy designs and stuff, but sometimes something pretty simple can be kind of an eye-catcher. I didn't used to use a lot of texture, but texture, I think, can really make something a lot more dramatic. Recent times I've started to incorporate a little bit more of that. Okay, so we got there and there. So we'll get those all pickled up and then put them on some chains and get some pictures. Tell me which one you like the best. Maybe after a couple of days in the comments I'll tell you which one I like the best. All right. Okay, here's the three different kinds. Here's the one that doesn't have any decoration. Here's the hammered one using the side of my chasing hammer. And then here's the one with the little kind of woven looking pattern going all the way around. So it looks like I did pretty well on hiding the solder joint. It's actually right there, but it's not very obvious. So all right, well, don't forget to tell me which one you like the best, if any. Any kind of things you might have done different. I think of some variations you could do for these. There's a lot of different things you could do. You could add a stone in the middle here on the bottom. You could oxidize these to bring out some of the color in them and some of the texture. You could do a lot of different things. You could even hang another little one inside of this, inside of the bale here, a smaller one or something like that. There's all sorts of variations you could do. So, all right. Well, I'll get some better pictures and put them at the end. All right, well, that was the three little kind of ring pendants. I hope you enjoyed those. Tell me in the comments which one you like the best. I'd love to hear it. And I'd also love it if you'd hit the like button before you go. That really helps to get my channel promoted, and I do appreciate that. It'd be great also if you checked out my main channel page. I have over 625 videos now, I believe. So I do 3 per week, one on Tuesday, one on Thursday, and one on Saturday. And so there's a constant stream of good content coming out. So it'd be great if you watched a few of those, and I'd love it if you'd subscribe to my channel. There's really no cost to it or anything, and it makes it easier to find my content. So make sure to do that before you go. I needed to thank some groups of people. My patrons over on Patreon are my core group of supporters, and not only do they provide me with some financial help, they've created this really lovely community over there full of artistic people with a lot of knowledge and resources. And it makes it so we can all kind of share and help each other out. It's a nice place. I wanted to specifically thank them not only for the financial help, but also for making it such a nice place like that. So thank you for that. The other group are my YouTube subscribers, and we just passed 28,000, which is amazing. I can't believe that. I love the nice comments that you guys leave. I appreciate the constructive criticism, sharing what you do or how you do things. telling me ideas for videos, or just sharing your story. I've met so many nice people through YouTube, and I really do appreciate the kindness that you've all shown towards me. So thank you for that. Thank you also for the financial help, the Buy Me a Coffees, the super thanks, the merch purchases, or buying my ebooks. That stuff all really adds up and helps to sustain my channel. So thanks for doing that. Finally, don't forget to hit the video description down below. There's some important links there. There's a link to my Patreon if you want to find out more about the various tiers of membership on that. There's a link to my merch store should you want to get yourself one of those nice design idea sketchbooks I was talking about at the beginning, or some other merch. There's lots of other stuff there too, so check those out. Finally, there's a link to my newest ebook, which is the Guide to 2025's tutorials. I did 170 plus tutorials last year, and so there's a page in this ebook with a link to each of those, and it also includes a picture of the sketch that I drew prior to doing the project, a picture of the final outcome, a list of materials it takes to make the piece, stone information if it has a stone in it, a difficulty rating, sort of subjective on my part, I suppose, and then some notes that I put about each of the projects, including things like would I do it differently if I was to approach it again, or what did I learn while I was doing it, or did I like the outcome or not, or what would I have changed to make it better if I was to do it again. So all that kind of stuff. It's a nice way to have a ton of projects right at your fingertips, and a really nice way to support my channel. So you can even get a 3-pack and get 2023s, 2024s, and 2025s for a reduced price. So check that out. Thanks for coming today, and thanks for watching. Take care. Happy silversmithing.